Now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. But while it's true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he is willing to redeem you, very well. Let him marry you. But if he is not willing, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until morning. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alrighty, so we're looking at Ruth chapter 3. Chapter 1 was basically Naomi falling on hard times, losing all of the male members of her immediate family, namely her husband and 2 sons. She kind of convinced one of her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab and go back to her family, but Ruth stuck around with Naomi. They went to, I want to say it was around Bethlehem. But anyway, they went back to Israel, somewhere in Judah, I'm pretty sure. And then in chapter 2, Ruth wound up finding the field of a man named Boaz, who was related to Naomi's husband who died. And Boaz also ends up just wanting to be helpful and telling Ruth, hey, just come back here to my field and you can pick grain and food for yourself from my fields, because you might get it. Well, and Naomi says she might wind up, getting hassled or whatever if she goes somewhere else. So that's kind of where we've left things off. So, Ruth chapter 3, here we go. One day Naomi said to Ruth, "My daughter, it's time that I found a permanent home for you, so that you will be provided for. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with his young women. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now do as I tell you. Take a bath and put on perfume and dress in your nicest clothes. Then go to the threshing floor, but don't let Boaz see you until he has finished eating and drinking. Be sure to notice where he lies down. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do." Okay, so Naomi seems to be giving Ruth a way to pretty much, for lack of a better way to put it, potentially kind of woo Boaz, or at least do something to get a little more attention from him. But anyway, that kind of seems to be the plan. Then, I'm not sure there's too much else to say about that. I think all the context of him, winnowing barley at the threshing floor and, waiting until he's finished eating and drinking, all that is just, to make sure that he's, alone and or not busy. So, yeah. And obviously the taking a bath, putting on perfume and dressing nicely, that's all supposed to be to, impress him and or, show an extra sign of affection or something like that. Anyway, verse 5. "I will do everything you say," Ruth replied. So she went down to the threshing floor that night and followed the instructions of her mother-in-law. After Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he lay down at the far end of the pile of grain and went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Around midnight, Boaz suddenly woke up and turned over. He was surprised to find a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant Ruth," she replied. "Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer." Okay, so the plan has been followed, and Boaz definitely notices her now, but didn't really notice who she was, so she had to explain herself a little bit. And as a refresher, the whole family redeemer concept was pretty much related to, after a woman's husband died, especially if they didn't have any children, there was a process of sorts to follow, kind of a chain within the family that could be followed to find someone else for her to marry so they could then have children and still kind of carry on the legacy of the husband who had passed. Anyway, then we get to verse 10. "The Lord bless you, my daughter," Boaz exclaimed. "You are showing even more family loyalty now than you did before, for you have not gone after a younger man, whether rich or poor. Now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. But while it's true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he is willing to redeem you, very well. Let him marry you. But if he is not willing, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until morning." Okay, so yeah, turns out there's somebody else in the chain who, by the process laid out in the Jewish law and regulations, had first dibs, so to speak, to potentially marry Ruth. So he's going to go talk to that guy first. Because if you don't follow the chain, that could bring about trouble in some way or another later on. Whether, jealousy or even just punishment from God for not following the rules how you're supposed to. But anywho, verse 14. "So Ruth lay at Boaz's feet until the morning. But she got up before it was light enough for people to recognize each other. For Boaz had said, 'No one must know that a woman was here at the threshing floor.' Then Boaz said to her, 'Bring your cloak and spread it out.' He measured 6 scoops of barley into the cloak and placed it on her back. Then he returned to the town." Real quick, just going to look at the footnotes there. The scoops, the Hebrew says 6 measures, which is kind of a rough estimate. Reminds me of some of my grandmother's recipes, apparently, when she would make certain things, and it would be like, I distinctly remember somebody, whether it was my older sister or my mom or somebody like that, talking about one of them and how the directions said to get like a heaping teaspoon of something or another. It's like, what exactly is heaping? Or, other things like a pinch, a dash, these rough measurements that it's like, okay, we can't exactly quantify how much that is in like actual, scientific style measurements. But anyway, yeah, and it would be like, okay, 6 scoops from what? From like, are we talking like full spade style shovel, or are we talking just like You know, like one of those scoops you might get for an ice tray or something. I don't know. Anyway. However large the scoops were, he gave her 6 of those. Presumably to take with her back to Naomi and their house. Most Hebrew manuscripts read he. Many Syriac version and Latin Vulgate read she. Okay. So, either way, they separate for the time being. When Ruth went back to her mother... Oh, yeah. Verse 16. I'm going to read the rest of the chapter now. When Ruth went back to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "What happened, my daughter?" Ruth told Naomi everything Boaz had done for her. And she added, "He gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" Then Naomi said to her, "Just be patient, my daughter, until we hear what happens. The man won't rest until he has settled things today." So, still haven't quite resolved that whole situation with the family redeemer chain and what all is going to happen there. But that's probably coming in the next chapter then. But, like Boaz said, if that man doesn't agree to do it, then he's going to go ahead and be the family redeemer himself. So, yeah, that wraps things up for Ruth chapter 3. Okay, so, in so many words, Ruth has shown her commitment to Boaz, and Boaz is willing and able to, be the family redeemer, but there's a certain process that needs to be followed, and there's actually somebody else who is more closely related to Elimelech, Naomi's husband who died. So technically, Boaz needs to talk to this guy first to see if he is willing and able to fulfill that role. But if he doesn't, then Boaz is all but guaranteeing that he will do it himself. He's basically promised Ruth that, all right, if this guy doesn't take care of it, I will. So anyway, that wraps things up for Ruth chapter 3. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. If you're seeing this somewhere else, feel free to give me a follow or whatever needs to be done on there to keep up with my latest videos that I post. If you want other ways to keep up with my activity online and interacts and chat and stuff in between, look down in the description for info on social media accounts and all that kind of stuff. There's also a link to my Discord server down in there. Definitely a good spot to chat and talk about stuff in between videos and whatnot. And also, feel free to leave comments down below the video with any thoughts you have. So, that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. Whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.